Tamayo, so I thought I would help because I did get the request for hair. Hair is really complicated, so I thought I would give you just a quick reminder on my lovely scrap piece of paper here, just a refresher of what hair is about. Hair, when you're shading it in, it really depends on the aesthetics that you're going for. So for Tamayo in particular, her hair is a little bit more traditional, so you can go in a multiple different ways when it comes to shading her hair. So for her particular hair, I would say to keep it pretty simple by looking at layers. So for instance, I have this little piece of hair that hopefully that you can see. I'm just gonna add another little layer underneath just to help with that, to drive home what I'm trying to say. So this is her hair. What I would do is I would first start by shading in the hair in regards to the way that the main lines are moving. Everyone's a little bit different. For instance, on this person, because it's very shaggy hair, the lines are kind of going very scattered. So this is not her type of hair. Her hair is more solid. So what I would do at first is I would just take your pencil. You can use a little scribble. You can use little scribbles, or you can use little straight lines, but I would use the edge of your pencil, not the very end of your pencil, and I would just start to shade it in with some quick strokes. I wouldn't go too dark, only because of the way that we colored it in class. It's a very light drawing. So I would start with like a medium gray and just really fill in. And if you notice that by using the end of my pencil with a very soft edge, I can get more coverage, but I also get a little bit more even coverage. So I'm just going back and forth, shading in that first area on that left side of her head. And then on the second side, I would do the same. So I would shade this area similar to what I did on the left side. Still following the lines, I'm going to continue to shade in this little piece that I just added, just to show you what I mean when it comes to hair. So as you can see, the hair is pretty even in its strands. Continue on the top, still following the hair growth. As you can see, my pencil is traveling along the edge of her hair and coming through. Again, the edge of the pencil makes a big difference in the way that you shade. So just going to add that. This is one solid color. There is an option to take a stump, sorry, all my stumps are a little bit dirty, and to kind of smudge it in as an option, just to kind of even it out. Personally, with sketches, particularly in the style of the class, it's not 100% required, but if you like to have a little bit more cleaner edges, it might help you. It's also going to be really particularly helpful when we start to add more detail to it, because right now it's pretty flat. So what I want to do next is I want to add like a darker layer, and that starts by the areas, the crevices, the attachment shadows that happen when you are drawing your hair. So again, same even strokes are along the edge, shadows, still following the hair growth, it's just that there's different shadows. And in particular, all of our hair has various lengths and strands. As you can see, like with my hands, we have these attachment shadows. Same thing applies with hair. So there's going to be a little bit of shadows in between here. And sometimes, as I've pointed out with this character, you will get that in characters with lighter hair or shaggy hair. Her hair is very well kept, so it's not going to have that same flowy edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to think about light sources. Again, I don't quite remember where we put the light source, but in the class we're not totally dealing with an exact light source, but I like to kind of make it as though the light is coming from the side or the front of the head. And this is going to be important, particularly when we do things like attachment shadows. So what I need to do underneath, this is part of her skull, I want to darken it, and it's going to be one of the darker areas. So underneath, I'm going to follow along. I'm going to start with the same type of color that I already had, shading it in, that medium to light gray. And then I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna add a second layer, and this is what keeps it clean. A lot of people will go in really dark all at once, but if you're using the side of your pencil, it takes just as long as just going in dark. It's just that you'll have a little bit more precision in the shadow that you're using. So for instance, if this is the top of her head, this is where her eyes are, the area of just in that crack of the hair is going to be a little bit darker than, let's say, on the top where it may be exposed to a little bit more light. So you can make it a little bit lighter. And then in areas where it's kind of like has a fold, you would also see a little bit of darkness. So for instance, this area here, I would add a little bit of a contour shadow, which is just a curved shadow that follows along with the cut. So I'm just adding, again, doing the same thing, adding a little bit of a medium shadow in that area. And then using it to kind of trace up to the side of the hair where you might need it to be attached. Again, this is the piece that kind of folds behind her hair, so there's going to be a little bit of a shadow there. And because of the light being from the top, there's going to be a little bit more darkness towards the bottom of this hair as well, because it is round. So just looking at it, I'm just going to add a little bit of a light line, kind of just coming around. It's going to be a little bit lighter than the shadow and the shadow here because it is in front, so it's a little bit exposed. It also kind of reinforces the contour of the hairstyle itself. So if you notice that just by going around following the cut edge, you get a little bit more depth to that shadow. You can also add a little bit more towards the end, just to kind of give it a little bit more personality. So that's the first layer. That's where you would probably find the light source. And then you add the attachment shadow. It's really where the folds would be in the hair. So on her hair particularly, there would be a second additional shadow right in this edge where this little piece that I drew would be. So I'm just going to add a little bit of a darker shadow along that edge. Again, making it a little bit darker than the rest of the hair. Also around the face as well. And then finally the last piece would probably be a little bit darker than, let's say, this top piece, and particularly this little piece of hair as well, because it's kind of further down into the face. So what I like to do is I add a little bit extra darkness right where there's that crevice, kind of like a cast shadow, which is just a shadow that kind of bounces off the hair. And I'm just going to follow along, adding a little bit more darkness to the end, again because there isn't a whole lot of light happening. And then I'm going to just follow along towards the end of my hair to add that little bit of a cast slash attachment shadow. And of course her ear would be about here. It's not exactly what happened, but it's because I don't have it right in front of me, but I think this is kind of the area where her hair would be, which also means that after you're done, you can always take your pencil, because it is an anime, so there's, or in this case a manga, there is a little bit of lines that you need to incorporate. So I'm just going to go back and just add a little bit of a harder line around the edges, really reinforcing any of the main lines. It doesn't have to be entirely the whole hair, but you know, lines around the face, around the edge of the hair, on the outside as well. It's important to get this little shadow in place and then darken it just by the ear itself as well, because there's a little bit, I think there's a little bit of a sideburn that happens. So that would be the edge of the hair. Again, it's a matter of just thinking about the lines that you already put down, and then using gravity, using segments, using attachment shadows, and then also thinking about light. I don't really work with light in the class just because there's a lot of students who haven't really experienced doing shading, so I try to incorporate it a little bit at a time in the classroom. So that is my hair. And another trick to do if you wanted, and I don't know if we did this in class, is around the hairline. So if you don't have time to shade in your hair because let's say you're going to class or you're sitting and you're like, oh no, I have to do something else. If you add a little bit of, and I'm using my stomp here, but you can also use your pencil. If you add a little bit of a light shadow, kind of like around the face area, like I did here, just a very subtle shadow, it helps to reinforce the hair as being part of the head versus being just on top of the head. It's kind of bleeding into the face, because when you look at someone's face, there isn't just this white cast around the face and then the hair is pretty, it's just there and dark. It has a little bit of that shadow as well. So just adding a little bit of shadow, I'm just gonna do it on this side so that you can see, really can affect the way that the hair falls onto the face. So that's also important as well. So hopefully this was helpful for you. If you do need any more help, just let me know. But that is it for now. Okay, bye.